I'm not going to waste any of your time. I'm just going to get right into it. So, when I'm looking at this bottle, my mind completely sort of phases everything else out, of course, unconsciously, so that all my focus is here. If I'm looking at the camera, then everything else, I'm choosing not to look at everything else. There's 100 billion million things, really, billion or trillion, whatever, things I can be looking at right now. I could be looking to the side, at my wall, or to the other wall, to the windows, but then I choose to look at the camera. Why is that? The reason why I choose to look at the camera is because of the value, right? So unconsciously, my mind basically compares all the things that I can be looking at, and compares their value. So right now, in this moment, what I value most is looking at the camera. I value the camera the most. Therefore, my eyes are focusing in on the camera. And what's really interesting is when when your eyes look at something, it's basically it is still moving, right? So you think you'd be keeping your eyes still, but it's actually opposite. It actually has to move even faster so that it can just single out this one thing. In this case, would be my camera, right? So your mind unconsciously already compares all the values of things and then chooses to focus on the one thing that you value the most in this sense. And the reason why I find this so interesting is that we can basically use our mind to do more of what we want to do. So how can we use this knowledge and then implement it into our daily lives and into our self-improvement? And one of the things, I'm pretty sure you've heard this trick. I don't really know the name of the effect, but it's basically, if you basically, let's say, name a color, right? So you want to look for red right now. And then you can look through your room, right? Just say, okay, all I want to see is red. I'm looking consciously for red. And then suddenly your mind can just quickly pop out all the red inside your room, right? Maybe you be watching this while you're driving and you can see all the red cars, or the case may be red just starts, it doesn't sound logical, but it starts becoming more brighter to you, right? It stands out more so that your mind just picks up on it more because that's what you're looking for, right? The value of red starts to increase and therefore your mind picks up, your eyes can just focus on it better. And that's where I think this, of course, is pseudoscience, but I'm trying to, of course, this paradigm of basically, the value hierarchy, and your mind and your eyes basically follow through that in order to focus in on that one thing. Basically, this hierarchy of values. I got it from Jordan Peterson and Jonathan Pageau when they have this discussion. So do check it out from the original source. But I want to take a different spin on it, right? Where basically in that same scenario, where if you try to pick out let's say red inside your room, and then it starts popping out to you, you can basically do the same thing for your other habits. So, for example, when you're scrolling through TikTok, or when you're scrolling through YouTube Shorts, or when you're just needlessly wasting time, in your own opinion, then instead of doing the hard task, whether it be deep work, meditation, or exercise, right now your mind is basically realigning the values, right? Perceived values. So, in this case, you actually are sort of valuing the bad habit more than the good habit, because if you actually value the good habit, you would be doing the good habit. And I know it is a weird sense, because if your monkey brain was in the control of you, you would be doing the good habit. So how can we basically teach our mind to spot out the value? How can we make the good habit basically like red? It just starts bright and we just focus in on that, and we basically get drawn into doing the good habit. I'm actually not sure, because I've been thinking about this quite a lot, but one of the things I know is that if we can train our mind to pick out on the things that we want to do better. So one of the things I know for a fact changes your mind to sort of pick out good things is basically stuff like journaling, and gratitude journaling especially. So what gratitude journaling basically does is that you basically train your mind to just pick out on the good things in life, right? And what happens unconsciously, right, is that your mind gets used to this sort of value assessment, I would say. And then you start to go along through the day appreciating things more. You just actually become more grateful, even when you're not gratitude journaling. So initially, when you're gratitude journaling, it's hard for you to sort of start picking out things that you could be grateful for in your life. But then once you start doing it regularly and start practicing it, you start to pick it out unconsciously, You know what I mean? Not even purposefully. It just becomes what pops into your mind. What your eyes pick up on, and your mind just sort of assesses into like, oh yeah, I'm grateful for this bottle right now because I've been drinking for it, I've been using it, and it's always there. It keeps me hydrated. It's always there. When I look at it, I know that I need to stay hydrated and stuff like that. Another thing is, of course, initially we have to do okay. So when you're starting the good habit, you basically have to fight. It's really just the willpower to get to do the good habit. But that's the thing. Once you start having the momentum, things start changing. So basically, my whole theory is that we can basically change the way we sort of value things based off this thing, right? Where you can focus in on everything basically just because you value it more, right? It's not necessarily just because you're not, because it's funny because biologically that's what it's made for. You want to look at something and then try figure out the utility of it, right? What good will it do for you? What, right? It's not like I take the bottle and then I look at all these glass molecules or whatever the case may be, but instead I'm like, oh yeah, this bottle I can drink water from it. That's what you think when you look at it, right? You think of the utility. You don't look at a flipping bicycle and then you think of all the gears, the chains, the wheels. But instead you look of, I can just ride the bicycle. That's what you think of it. You think of the utility of it. So basically you start to basically self-program your mind into seeing the utility of the good habits. And one of the ways, it's basically for sure gratitude journaling, I believe prayer if you're religious as well, and just sort of like going throughout the day. And anytime you enter like sort of like a challenging situation, you basically have to reaffirm the value of it. So if you're having a fight with your parents, if you're having a fight with someone else, you're basically like, okay, this is a test of my character, and now you start to view it differently, right? You've changed the scenario. It's the same thing when we took the red example, right? You say, okay, let me see all the red. Let's say there's two different situations where you call out the color red, and when you don't, it's the same reality, right? Which is the funniest thing. It's the same exact reality. Nothing has changed except the way you view it, right? Except the way you assign the value towards a certain part of the reality. And then suddenly you experience the reality different. And this is what the Stoics used to do, where anytime they would encounter like a really, really difficult part of their lives or a challenge or whatever the case may be, instead of viewing it exactly just for what it is, right, or whatever the case may be, they chose to implement this sort of the Stoic mindset, right? It's like, okay, this is a time for me to grow. I can learn from this, right? This is a test on my character. And so that's how you gotta the view all the bad habits even as well. You could just say, well, damn it, I fell into this again. Let me get out, right? So you're gonna have to will your way out initially, but then after a while you build up the momentum. And what's the best part about it is that it's all unconscious. Eventually you just start unconsciously just doing the good habits because that's how where you assign the value towards, right? It's all about value. That's what your mind wants to do. And one of a really great quote by Viktor Frankl, which I kind of forgot, but basically he said, I'm paraphrasing, but a really great quote you should check out. I'll list the quote in the description, hopefully. Is just that if man doesn't prioritize purpose, then he will prioritize pleasure. And that's the same thing with the mind, right? Your mind just wants to see the utility of things, the value of things. If you look at it like an evolutionary standpoint, biological standpoint, whatever the case may be, that makes sense, right? Is that if you don't see the value in going into the cold shower, or it's super cold, if you don't see the value in the pain, then why would your brain just let you do this super hard task for no reason? That's why stuff like purpose, right? Why you're doing the act is so important. You need to set that basically the reason for why you're doing this, right? It doesn't matter like, oh, okay, I understand the thing is just like, that's because who I am, that part. But like initially when you're trying to get out of that rut, you're not really the dude who wakes up and like grinds and does all the good habits initially, and that's fine. But if you want to change, you have to start changing your reality and start viewing the good habits as actually the good habits, right? What's actually going to move you forward. That's when you don't have purpose, people just fall back down into pleasure. Your mind doesn't see the value in doing all this exercise, in doing all the gratitude journaling or the deep work task, working on a business. Your mind doesn't see it as valuable if you don't tell it it's valuable, right? Instead, it's just going to start prioritizing pleasure. and it makes sense. That's what your brain doesn't know better, right? But you've got to teach your brain to do better, and you just have to go along. One of the habits I have really read. I've been saying this a lot, but is gratitude journaling, stuff like prayer, reading the Bible and stuff like that, or whatever scripture, the religion you're part of, following stuff like that. I believe it's extremely, extremely important. One of the things. So let me just list it out. Number one, it's all about value. You go throughout your entire reality based off this thing, right? Especially if the evolutionary standpoint is the objective way of reality, then your mind is just going to see based on your survival needs, right? So number two is you're going to have to get this value for the good habits. You're going to have to start prioritizing purpose over pleasure. Makes sense. Why would your brain do something extremely difficult if you don't have a reason for doing it, right? If it actually doesn't see it as valuable, your brain will start to pick up on like, okay, this is just our life now. We just start doing the hard stuff because that's what is seemingly just going to help us survive. And third, and this is pretty damn obvious, purpose over pleasure, and then just reminder, right? Remind yourself on why exactly you're doing this type of stuff, right? If it's constantly in your brain, like you can just think about it as the winners. Like I can just tell you like, okay, write down your goals, write down your purpose. But if you're really obsessed about this, it's just always in your head. You always know why you're doing it, what you need to do, and stuff like that. And I guess the last thing I can just say is just stay with it, man. If you have this thing, this purpose, right? You've already basically won. I'm not gonna lie. You're always gonna come back to it. So just stay. Okay, damn. I think the ink is stay on track. That's the thing. When people find self-improvement, they can't. Okay, all right. We'll keep that in, I guess, because I've come this far in recording the video. I've been making excuses to not upload the video. Damn. Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. This is. Gosh damn it. Oh, for fuck's sake. Okay. But yeah, I can just leave it there for you if you don't see it. Okay. But yeah, guys, just stay on the track. I'm rooting for you. And that's pretty much it. It's a 12-minute video. This is my first video in a long time, so it's good to be back. Stay strong. You can do all things to Christ who strengthens you, and all love.